whatever you wind up doing is exactly what you should be doing.
And I have not behaved one single day of my life. Not one day of my life have I behaved, and I am fine.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're gonna hurt some people.
Whose car are we gonna take?
And thanks for joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show. Love seeing all of you in the comments. Kim and I are just cracking for the show. So sorry for a bit of a delay. We have a great show coming up. I am going to start off, Kim, talking about the booster. The booster has been approved. You can get boosted. And I was telling you, I know people, like literally found out yesterday that my friend's kid, her young daughter, had COVID. And I was like, how sick did she get? And she's like, nah, maybe a day in bed, and then she was fine. You're one of, I think, 2 or 3 people I know that are vaccinated and have never gotten COVID. How many people do you know?
It's a handful, not very many. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we'll get into Governor Newsom's comments about doing everything differently with COVID. We'll also get into the appointment of somebody to take Feinstein's seat if she ever decides to take one for the team. And the team, I mean, the state of California, and retire and let somebody take the job until the election. But we'll get into all of that.
I gotta tell you, she don't look good.
She does not look good. And again, we'll get into this, but I'm sorry. It's ego. We didn't get to discuss this, and I know that you did a bunch about Nancy Pelosi throwing her freaking hat into the race. The ego is preventing these people from just letting the next generation come through. That is firmly what I believe. So we'll get into that. And this appointment, this caretaking role, if Gavin Newsom does have to make a second appointment, right? Because he had to appoint someone to take Kamala Harris's seat. And then he would have to, if Feinstein step down, appoint Feinstein's seat. He doesn't want to do it. I don't think anybody else wants to do it, but it is what it is. There is actually a good headline surrounding ChatGPT. And this one doesn't surprise me. It's as if, when you don't feel well and you kind of go on Google Doctor, and it never really works out for you. And in this case, it actually did. Are you a night owl or an early bird, Kim McAllister?
I'm a night owl.
Yeah, it's not good for your health. There's a new study that's coming out that says night owls may be at a greater risk for diabetes and health issues. It doesn't surprise me, but I'm wondering, this was my question, as people start to adjust their hours, whether they work at home or they have to go into the office, can this be adjusted for your health? And this study has some interesting findings on how easy it is for people to adjust it if they find out it's not good for them. As far as the writers' strike in Hollywood, apparently Drew Barrymore is facing a lot of criticism because she's continuing her show. Now, she says her show is not under the umbrella of the writers' strike. Other people are saying that's BS. It totally is. You negotiate these contracts under the same thing. So we'll kind of get into that. And should she kind of take one for the team and not take one for the team, be part of the union that she's part of and not have her show. Did you hear what Elon Musk's third child's name is?
Yes.
Have you heard this? His book came out. That's why I brought it up as well. His book is out. Isaacson wrote it. I think that's his name. Techno Mechanicus. Techno Mechanicus.
So
what is he, a freaking robot? Is he from the Jetsons?
X a dark, known as Y. So X and Y.
X known as Y? Like, what is this,
X,
Twitter?
Y,
Okay.
and Technus.
Technus.
Who am I to judge, right?
Yes, I am somebody to judge. That's a crappy name. Sorry. No, that's terrible. And the kid's just going to change it. Doesn't he have a kid that came out recently and said, I don't even talk to my dad anymore. He's just terrible.
Yeah, it's his older daughter. And she's like, I can't even.
Yeah. Kara Swisher, she's like a tech writer. She's huge in the tech world. She gave a very brief synopsis of Elon Musk's new book. And so she's like, here's the TLDR about it. Basically, and what she led was he has turned into his abusive father that he hated so much. And that she says he's often right, sometimes wrong, but, a lot of times bad. Yeah, interesting. I'm not going to read it. I'm not much. Are you much of a biography reader? Because I am not. There's just not a lot of biographies I'm that into that I can geek out on a book.
Like the biography behind you?
Oh, well, this is totally different. Are you kidding me right now?
I'm just pointing out.
I'm 2 days away.
Yeah.
I'm 2 days away. So there are still tickets, by the way, if anybody wants to go. And I called yesterday. Okay, just a quick synopsis of what the hell Kim's talking about. This is obviously Matthew McConaughey. This is his book, Green Lights, which, yeah, it's a biography, but it's more than that. It is so much more than that, Kim. So I called on Thursday. I'm going to the book passage at the Ferry Building in San Francisco because Matthew McConaughey is in San Francisco for Dreamforce. I think this is totally obviously timed with that. So I called the book passage and I'm like, when are the doors open? I also don't want to stay in San Francisco forever. I need to get home. You know what I mean? I got stuff to do. Like I have stuff that evening that I have to get back for. And so I call and I'm like, I'm coming on Thursday for the reading. And she's like, it's not a reading. He's not even reading his book.
It's just posing for photos and signing?
He's signing the book. He's taking, and I found out, I read the thing closely. It's a professional photo. So I don't even have to be in charge. So that weight of like, I'm going to blow it. I'm not going to take a good picture. Apparently somebody's going to take a picture for me. So
okay,
that's fine. But yeah, he's not reading it. So basically the travel time, which is always the case, right? The travel time to get there and home is going to be the longest part of this whole entire experience.
Yeah, it's going to be like...
It's going to be in and out.
It's going to be like maybe 2 minutes tops. Hi, thank you so much. You get to say one thing. He says, thank you for coming. He signs the book. You smile for the picture and off you go.
So worth it though. Because I get my picture. I get to put my
Are you going to blow it up right behind you?
I definitely am going to get a 5x7. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. I'm not going to go 8x10. 8x10 is for the kids' school pictures. 5x7 is for right here. I don't think I'm going to kiss him because I don't assault people. I might hug him.
Don't Spanish soccer the guy.
I'm so excited. I don't think.
Do not leap into his arms and wrap your legs around his torso.
If he opens his arms a little bit, I might just have to. I'll be like, oh, you've opened your arms to me.
I need a hug. Just say, I need a hug.
I waited. Okay, I'm not going to park. I'm taking Caltrain. I've already determined. I have a whole plan, people. I'm going to finish this show, and I'm going to take the train to San Francisco. Like that is, well, I mean, I'm going to, get ready. And then I'm going to take the train. And then I'll probably rent a bicycle, and then I'll ride the bike to the Ferry Building. And then when I'm done, I'll ride the bike back to the train station and I'll go home. That's my plan. That is my entire plan. If you want to stalk me, if you're going, please find me. I hope to be at the front of the line. I hope to be the first freaking person in line. Like I really do. I would love it if I was the first person in line. I'm really trying to get there early enough. She told me 3:30 is when they start checking people in. And it's at 4 that it starts. But again, it's not sold out. So maybe there won't be a lot of people and I can have more time with him. So
it didn't seem well advertised.
Yeah, right. I mean, again, huge Matthew McConaughey fan. Never would have known if Dillette didn't tell you who told me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but anyways, that's my plan. And yes, this book is actually really, really good. I'm going to take that back. I read, was it Bunny Pants? The Tina Fey book. I read that book. That was really funny. Like comedian books I'll read, and then anything with Matthew McConaughey. But no, I'm not reading about Abraham Lincoln. You know what I mean? I'm not reading any of Bill O'Reilly's freaking biopics about whatever person he's into. I don't geek out. I will tell you a funny story, and I should have pulled the picture. You guys know I love going to the library. Okay. And I went to the library because I finished my 2 books because I've just been devouring books lately. Oh, I have one right here. Perfect. I must have gotten like 6 books because I was like, I was geeking out. I was like in a candy store. I go into the YA section because I was looking for that book. I'm brain farting on the name. The one that Tim Seco was talking about on Friday that was made into a movie. Aristotle and Dante and the Secrets of the Universe. I think that's what it's called. I told you I like to read books before I watch the movie. And so I went specifically to go get that book yesterday. And it's in the YA section. I walk into the YA section and the entire front like shelf, you know, where they broadcast the books that they want you to read. It's all banned books. So this is what it says on all the books. Like it says banned. And this one's banned for sexually explicit, degrading to women. It's called Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. I've never read this book, but it also says it's now a motion picture. So definitely have to read it. Yeah, all banned books. Slaughterhouse-5, which I picked up because I haven't read it in forever. And I didn't realize when I should have known because it was really thin and it was big. They turned it into a graphic novel. They turned Slaughterhouse-5 into a graphic novel. And so I'm reading it and it's weird to read it in this way, but it's actually kind of cool. So, and my son was like, can I read it? And I was like, let me read it again just to kind of be, you know, but yeah, so I have that. I got a bunch of different books. I got The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison because I've never read that book. So I'm starting that one as well. So all these banned books, I was just like a kid. I'm like, oh, I'm going to read that one again. I'm going to read that one again. I'm going to read that one again. But yeah, I've just been reading so much and it keeps me off my stupid freaking phone at night. I need to just stop doing all of that stuff. All right. Let's get some business out of the way before we get to the COVID boosters and Gavin Newsom and everyone's a genius because, you know, obviously when you look back, you know everything. We'll do all that. But first, let's get some business out of the way. And that includes clicking the thumbs up button to show your support of the show. We need to do this each and every show, even if you watch it on replay. It helps us out. It gets us in front of new eyeballs and ears and everything like that. Please consider supporting this show and keeping it running by becoming a monthly Patreon subscriber. And when I say monthly, I mean just once a month. So go to theNikkiMedoroShow.com. Our Patreon link is right there. And you can sign up for any amount you want to. I'm coming up with a graphic. I don't know if I'm going to start it tomorrow or on Monday, but I'm going to start selling raffle tickets for my box of my favorite things. I've got my list. I've got some of the things coming through. The box is not completed yet, but it will be completed. But we're starting the raffle, and then we'll give away the raffle prize next month. And this is a fundraiser for the show. So all those details, well, the graphics coming, just with the email and everything like that. I'll probably display that tomorrow, and then we'll start that fundraiser. But this is the way to continually support the show. So again, theNikkiMedoroShow.com. Sign up for our Patreon. We really do appreciate it. We do have PayPal if you guys like it that way. And just to let you guys know, PayPal is likely going to be the biggest way you can buy a ticket to the raffle. So the email for PayPal is theNikkiMedoroShow@gmail.com. theNikkiMedoroShow@gmail.com. We take PayPal donations. You can buy merchandise, including my favorite Trump mugshot mug is up there, with indictments up the ass because that's what he has. Can you believe they're going to try to impeach freaking President Biden? It's blowing my mind. So that's all the ways you could support the show because we love doing this each and every time. Okay, so Kim's going to do some news. We're going to talk COVID. We're really going to talk about Gavin Newsom and some of the decisions he made, not just with the pandemic, but who is going to sit in Senator Dianne Feinstein's seat if she ever decides to get the hell out of it. That's all coming up after Kim's news.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Reports say House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, speaking of what you just mentioned, Nikki, will endorse an impeachment inquiry into President Biden perhaps as soon as today.
He's
President Biden for you. Yeah.
Not Biden.
House Republicans have been investigating the Biden family for months over business dealings with foreign companies and governments. The move would give Republican-led committees more authority to seek bank records from the president and his son, Hunter Biden.
This is just a distraction. This is just a distraction. This is just a distraction.
Impeach someone when you have zero evidence that they've done anything wrong?
This is going to help them find the evidence, Kim McAllister. This is, even though the guy that they say is their smoking gun, even came out and said, I might be your smoking gun with Hunter, but no, President Biden was not connected to this at all. And all the Republicans are like, oh, that part doesn't matter. It's a distraction. It absolutely is. And I hope America doesn't fall for it, but Trump supporters and hardcore Republicans are loving this. So whatever. They're idiots. Whatever.
The Biden administration now working to free 5 Americans being held in Iran through a prisoner exchange. It has issued a waiver for foreign banks to transfer $6 billion in Iranian oil funds that have been held up by U.S. sanctions. All 5 Americans were transferred from prison to house arrest in Tehran while the agreement between the U.S. and Iran was finalized. So they're still working to get these 5 people out. I don't know. Do you think we should free up money and pay money to get our people back? Or is it saying, if you hold our people and you take them, then that's good because it'll be good leverage for you down the road to get something you want?
Well, exactly. I mean, that's why these countries do things like this. You know what I mean? It's to have some sort of leverage. It's a hard one. That's, obviously I want to get our Americans back, hands down, right? But it does send a message. It's negotiating with terrorists, right? It's like, what do you do there? I don't know.
No, either. Let's go from this guy to this guy. I'm sorry. Former President Trump trying to have his charges in the Georgia election interference case dropped. Good luck. His attorney filed paperwork yesterday asking to dismiss state charges in Trump's racketeering case. Of course, he's accused of trying to overturn the state's results of the 2020 presidential election. Try everything you want to try.
You can ask.
What's going to happen?
No harm in asking, as they say.
This guy is still on a lam.
Oh my God. And did you hear today? Okay, hold on. Do the news. But like the reaction of the people that live in this area was cracking me up this morning.
I haven't heard the
I'll just do the news story first, and then I'll update you. Okay.
I was like, what are the people saying, Nikki? I don't know. This is in Pennsylvania, where police are still searching for this escaped killer who's been on the run for nearly 2 weeks. I mean, gotta give it to the guy. He's crafty. Danilo Cavalcante allegedly stole a gun from a home last night before being shot at by the person who lived there. Authorities don't believe he was injured during that shooting. They do say he seems to have changed his appearance now. And he was hiding in the woods for a while. Now he is, stealing weaponry. So now he's armed. Right. Armed and dangerous and doesn't quite look like himself. So I don't know.
And he's a killer. Like, he's a documented killer, right? So they were interviewing a bunch of neighbors that I was listening to this morning on the news. And they're like, well, they were treating him like he was like a bear or a wild animal. They're like, I'm sure he's just as scared of us, of being found by us, as we are of him. I'm like, I'm not exactly sure.
I don't think so.
It works. Like, he kills people. Do you kill people? Because he's killed people. Like, I would be deathly afraid to leave my house. And they're just like, well, even though he has a gun, I don't really think that he wants to encounter us. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he does. And now he has a weapon. But, they're brave. I would be locking every freaking door and not leaving. I would be so freaked out. Absolutely. This is the stuff of horror movies. And no, don't be an idiot.
I mean, I think if I live in this area and the woods are right behind my house, I'm staying at a little motel for a while. I don't know.
That's even better plan, Kim. Just leave. This is how horror movies would end early, though, Kim. See, it's like people using common sense. It's like
you don't say.
You could just leave and not stay where the serial killer is.
Maybe don't go into the basement. Yeah,
exactly.
China is allegedly behind a social media disinformation campaign about the cause of the deadly Lahaina wildfire. That, according to a report from the New York Times on Monday, one of the false claims that's been circulating is that the government was secretly testing a weather weapon on Lahaina. Yeah, okay.
Oh my God. Why do people do this? Like, it's... I don't know. Geez, whatever. Okay.
I mean, really. Yeah.
Well, and I don't know what is the benefit? What is the benefit of making a conspiracy like this up? Like, that's always my second question. It's like, okay, some people are just mean and they're crazy. But this is a country that's behind a misinformation campaign. What is the end goal here? Just to sow seeds of,
Anger, discontentment,
yeah,
anger toward the
something like
government.
that.
Yeah.
But like people also know there was a fire that got out of control. Like the reality, the facts, it boggles my mind that people are so willing to latch on to conspiracies sometimes to make sense of tragedy. It boggles my mind.
Natalie Holloway. Remember
wow, there's a
her?
face, yeah.
Yeah, this man facing charges connected to her disappearance is seeking more time to prepare for his trial. Joran Vandersloot is accused of trying to extort Holloway's mother in 2010 for $250,000 in exchange for the location of her body. The Jefferson County native disappeared while on a trip to Aruba in 2005, never to be found.
I mean, this always freaks me out. And the reason why it freaks me out is, well, one, when I graduated high school, I went to Cancun with some people in my senior class. And I still to this day, I'm like, wow, I don't know if I would want my kid to do that. And then you hear stories like this and how, I mean, awful, worst thing that could possibly ever happen. And it makes me wonder, parents, they obviously do, they still send their kids on these freaking trips out of the country. And something like this could happen. I can't even believe it. And yeah, Chris is like 2005 was almost 20 years ago. This was, well, not directly around. I mean, it was about 10 years later. The time that I went to Cancun. And I remember thinking, I was like, geez, the situations I found myself in hindsight probably weren't the safest. And thankfully there's nothing that happened. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's crazy. It's so freaking sad. It's so sad.
My sister also went to, I want to say Puerto Vallarta, and there was a girl in her high school group that was savagely attacked.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
And assaulted. And it was a bad scene. So you're right. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. And
did you ever go on a senior trip or anywhere out of the country at that age?
I was supposed to go to Hawaii with my friends, but I got caught having a party and my parents took my trip away. Busted.
Damn. That's quite the punishment. Taking away a trip like that at the end of high school. That's crazy. I mean, that must have been a rager. I hope it was worth it, Kim.
It was a rager. You know how they found out? 2 ways.
Neighbors.
First of all, no. We were living in a beach house down by Seacliff in Aptos at the time.
Yeah.
And somebody left a beer cap in the sink, an aluminum beer cap, and it went into the garbage disposal.
Oh no.
And I didn't know.
So annoying.
And so my stepmother turned on the garbage disposal and there it was, she's like, we don't drink this. And then someone taped a tendril of one of the vines that she had growing, like a house plant, taped it to the wall, and I didn't notice it. And she's like, "Why is this vine taped to the wall?" So they knew. Busted. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, but I didn't know how big of a rager it was. You couldn't just be like, okay, I had a couple of friends. You couldn't downplay the severity of the offense.
No, it was yeah.
They're like, one beer can, one tendril taped to the wall. You must have had a rager. I'm like,
it was a big one.
Decided to have. Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you.
Look at you.
That's probably the most trouble. That's the most trouble I ever got in. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. Our Kim. Oh, look. Oh my God. Who watched that game last night? I watched that game. I know you didn't watch that game last night.
I didn't watch it.
Oh my God.
New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers is out for the rest of the season.
75 seconds, they said. 75 seconds is the total amount of time Aaron Rodgers, the savior of the New York. Look, my brother is a Jets fan. He is a diehard Jets fan. And even he was like, oh my God. I'm like, the Jets just suck. And Aaron Rodgers was supposed to be the savior. He's out. And what's funny is I think I'd mentioned this before, but there's this HBO series called Hard Knocks, and it's about the NFL, and they follow teams. And the Jets this year are one of them. I don't know how this is gonna play out for old Aaron, but out with the Achilles. That's crazy.
Yeah,
they still won last night, by the way, though. They did still win, which in overtime, which was insane. But yeah, they won.
Multiple reports say an MRI has confirmed Rogers suffered a complete tear of his Achilles tendon on his left side during Monday Night Football. And of course, as you mentioned, Rogers was acquired in a trade during the offseason from the Green Bay Packers. You can see his Green Bay Packers hat there.
I don't think he's been with the Jets long enough to get a beanie.
No. Maybe he'll get a parting beanie. Who knows?
I mean, I'm sorry, but like I'm sure he has the guaranteed money. He was only signed for one season. I mean, the Jets just can't win for lose. It's funny. I mean, it is. Sorry, Aaron. You'll be fine. But yeah.
As you mentioned earlier, Drew Barrymore is facing a bit of backlash for resuming the taping of her talk show. As the writer's strike continues, more than a dozen protesters picketed outside CBS studios in New York City on Monday as production of the Drew Barrymore Show began production of its new season. Wait a minute, isn't everything dark? A number of Hollywood actors criticized Barrymore, questioning who would be writing for her show during the strike. Sunday, Barrymore responded by saying the show is in compliance. On social media, 2 audience members claimed they got kicked out of Monday's taping for wearing pins supporting the Writers Guild of America. A spokesperson for the show says it regrets the audience members were not permitted to attend and are reaching out to offer new tickets.
Yeah, I think, and I'll bring up the video. There was a video kind of explanation of the people that are offended by Drew Barrymore, but I think the way she's trying to couch it is she's a news program. So I'm part of SAG-AFTRA. I don't think you are you on pause with SAG-AFTRA, or did you just completely remove yourself?
I'm still a member.
Okay, yeah. So we're SAG-AFTRA, but we're under the broadcast contract. So we're not striking. So us working doesn't violate anything. Drew Barrymore is, I think, claiming that her program is kind of like the Today Show or Good Morning America. Okay. Like, even though it's in a different day part, that she provides news and information in kind of this talk show format. And so she's under that umbrella. And I don't know if her writers are under that umbrella, if their contract is like that, but that's the way she's trying to explain why her show can still be on versus something like Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert or something like that.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense because her talk show is much like an evening talk show. It does the same thing, right?
I mean, I don't watch Drew Barrymore's show, but I feel like it reminds me of daytime TV. Although I don't know. I mean, I haven't researched it, and I don't know if these are on reruns because, again, I don't really watch daytime TV. But like Sherry, all those kind of daytime talk shows, they're still on. Right? I don't know if it's on replay or reruns, but maybe it is. I don't know. I just keep seeing ads for those shows. So that's interesting. But she's also an actress. You would think that she would be.
That's what I was thinking. She
should
be in solidarity.
Writers. Yeah. But,
I do like her, so it's disappointing. But I think that a show like this, I don't know how much scripted writing you would do on a talk show. I mean, our show isn't written. My news is, but.
Yeah, but I don't think about what I say until it comes out of my mouth.
Right.
Hence why I say certain things.
Because we're having a real conversation. We're not like, it's not contrived and, all scripted out. No, we're just 2 people talking about stuff of the day. So maybe
it's not like but does she do a monologue? Because that you could say the same thing with Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, he does interviews. I don't know how much it's scripted, as in, maybe beforehand they're like, hey, let's talk about this, that, and the other, but there's no script that somebody's writing, right? Or maybe there is. I don't know how those things work. Maybe they're just good actors. I don't know.
And you would expect that if you reach the level that they have reached, that they would be able to write their own.
No, because they don't. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel has a team of writers. Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, Trevor, and all of them have a freaking room full of writers.
It's true, but they could probably write their own and get away with it. The question is, do you sit it out in solidarity with your writers, or do you go around them and write it yourself?
I also wonder, because her show has just, I think, hit a stride. I think when it first started, it was a little awkward. She had never done something like this before. And now she's hitting her stride. I think she doesn't want maybe that momentum to stop also. And again, maybe she is correct. I'm going to look through the article again and her explanation, but I think the thing is, she claims her writers are not like WGA writers. So, because I can't imagine her writers would become scabs or whatever, you know? So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. This report is indeed crowdfunded. That means
It
we rely
is.
on you. Please check us out at theNikkiMedoroShow.com, theNikkiMedoroShow.com, where you'll find the Patreon link and the PayPal link. And we thank you. I'm Kim McAllister on The Nikki Medoro Show.
All right, so let's talk a bit about this. Who in the comments is going to get the new booster? So I'm going to get it, but I'm not going to get it right now.
I'm going to get it.
But I'm not getting it right now. So they said, or at least on the news that I heard this morning, they said, unless you have you're of a certain age or you have some sort of health issue, that you can wait until next month. That way you have the best peak protection during the holidays. So I'm taking that advice. Are you getting your kids boosted?
Yes.
Oh, you are? Okay. I have not gotten my kids all the boosters. The last booster I did not do. They did not get that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I didn't do that, well, one, specifically with my son. Well, I actually have specifics with both. One is Marley, because of her Crohn's, there is a bit of an issue regarding vaccinations and how it could kind of react because of what Crohn's is, and kind of her antibodies kind of flare up a bit. We were concerned when she was on her infusions that it would kind of create some sort of reaction. So I have to talk to her doctor about that. And then with boys, there is a higher instance of myocarditis, and the risk of that versus the risk of him getting insanely sick from COVID, I don't know. So I have to talk to both of their pediatricians.
Really rare though. That whole
it is. No, it is.
thing,
exactly. Yeah. It is. But it is a risk. You know what I mean? So I've been kind of weighing both. I will defer to my pediatrician, who I do really, really like. Murphy says, I'll definitely get the kids boosted. People they know have had COVID in the last 2 months, but they still have never had it. Oh, God, that's awesome. I like I was mentioning earlier, my friend just told me yesterday that her young daughter, her middle daughter, got COVID. I said, how bad was it? And she's like, one day she was sick, and then she got better really quickly. Randy's getting the booster next week. Perfect. Kim says, I don't think this is a booster. It's a new vaccine. So here it is. Now, this has to do with the then dominant XBB.1.5 subvariant. Now, that is no longer prevalent now, but other strains are closely related to it. The predominant strain is called, it's so stupid, EG.5. That's about 22% of the cases. Another variant, FL.1.5.1. I mean, they come up with easier names. That's about 15% of new cases. And both Pfizer, Moderna, and Novavax say their boosters work against EG.5, which is the one that's 22%. Moderna also says its booster works against the FL1. Now, one doctor said he's not concerned about the vaccine effectiveness, saying that the vaccines developed so far have consistently shown to provide enough protection against severe disease, hospitalization, and death. And in all honesty, that's what I care about. Do I think my kids are never going to get sick with something, whether it's strep throat, the flu, COVID, whatever? Of course, they're going to get sick. Does that mean I don't still give them every form of protection? Of course. That's why I'm really going to talk to my pediatrician about this new booster. And I'm assuming they're going to advise us to get it. Susan says, I'm getting the booster when I can, sitting at home with COVID for the first time. Oh, sorry, Susan. It always sucks when we're this far into the pandemic and it's your first time. All right.
Sorry. I hope you feel better, Susan.
Yeah, I think that. How bad do you feel, Susan? If you want to share, I mean, because that's my whole thing. If you've been vaccinated, the whole idea is it's not going to be as bad as no protection whatsoever. Yes, you might feel sick, but it's going to help reduce the severity of it. I have a friend. He's retirement age because he said it was his year anniversary of being retired and he got COVID for the first time. And this was last week or the week before. And he's like, I avoided it the whole time and I got it on my year anniversary of being retired. So that kind of sucks, but he's alive, right? It's no longer how it was at the beginning of COVID, where I remember when my brother was the first in our family to get it. I mean, I was texting him almost every day. How are you feeling? Are you breathing? He lost his sense of smell. those sorts of the stereotypical now things that had happened to him. I was so afraid. I was so afraid that something terrible was going to happen, but I'm not anymore. And I think that is because of vaccines. I really do feel like my sense of it's going to be okay, as long as you have some protection. We have also medications if you do seem to get a bad case of it. And then there's what Gavin Newsom said. So I'm going to play you this. This was on Meet the Press. And I think he has a point, because California and Newsom get heavily criticized, especially when we talk about, the gap in education, the closing down of schools, what businesses were allowed to stay open. Kim, we've been following the Calgary church thing in my neck of the woods, how, churches weren't allowed to be in person, except Calgary, who was getting fined, all these sorts of things. And here's what Gavin Newsom says. You guys let me know while you're listening. What do you think? I mean, is he right? Or was people like Ron DeSantis right? And because there was a difference.
COVID. You were pretty strict with the lockdowns here. And it was an interesting piece in Harper's that sort of was critical of your decisions from this perspective. You found a way to allow the motion picture industry and the sort of the movie industry to get back to work, but you didn't allow people to grieve together at funerals or at churches. And that this may be why there's such a polarized disconnect. What you prioritize, right? This is this anger between the populace and the elite, supposedly. Here you prioritize this industry, but you were tougher on those that just wanted to go worship. What do you say to that, Chris?
I think there's a lot of humility, and we didn't know what we didn't know, and it was hardly it was we collectively.
I understand
and
that.
I think all of us, in terms of our collective wisdom, we've evolved. We didn't know what we didn't know. We're experts in hindsight. We're all geniuses.
But think about what you ended up collectively prioritizing. You're prioritizing industry, one specific one, but then didn't prioritize maybe ones whose maybe values you didn't connect with.
I don't think it's a binary. There was iterations within that theme. There was fits and starts. There were regional frameworks that had impacts more broadly defined. There were more industry specific frameworks. All of us went through a process. I mean, there was few states that didn't go into aggressive lockdowns, including Florida's Ron DeSantis.
No, I understand that, but it was
but within the framework of the
who opened the door. It's what industry got leniency and which ones didn't.
All of it is legitimate in terms of reflection. All of it's legitimate in terms of processing lessons learned. We went through a process. I actually had at Sunnylands, which is the Camp David on the West Coast.
Right.
We brought together experts across the spectrum, people that supported our efforts, people that opposed them, international experts. And we spent 3 days really reflecting, stress testing what we did right, what we did wrong. We're actually putting out a report as it relates to our own lessons learned. I think this country would do well to advance a similar construct, not through the lens or prisms of an ideology, but through
you think there should be almost like a 9/11 commission on what lessons learned from this pandemic?
There's been versions of that, but they're immediately dismissed within the prism of our partisan frame. And so I'm at least trying to work across that and in context of all
what
our
is
local,
something you do differently?
Well, I think we would have done everything differently because we understood. We would understand outdoors, as an example. The nature.
You wouldn't have shut schools down. You'd have tried to figure out how to maybe have outdoor classrooms.
No, that's not. Well, now you're. But I think the nature of the spread early on in understanding epidemiology of that spread, understanding the spread in the context of how it spread very differently indoors than outdoors is one perfect example of what a lot of us would have done differently, including, again, in states, red states that shut down their beaches in the early part of the pandemic. I think a deeper understanding around mask and mask wearing and N95s, KN95s, you go through a process across the spectrum in terms of being prepared, issues related to how we fundamentally address the distribution of vaccines and the prioritization. You want to talk about prioritizations early on. In terms of those vaccines, you go through a series of things. And there's so many things we could have done differently.
You think this country can handle another pandemic, or do you think it would break us?
I think we have to. We're a resilient country, so it wouldn't break us. But I'm not convinced we've learned the lessons from the last.
I agree. What do you think? I mean, I think he has a point. It's so easy to look backwards and be like, okay, so we know it spreads differently. Now, I will say this. The one thing that I think we did right at the beginning was lockdown because we didn't know anything. I'm still traumatized by that image of, and I'm sure many of you are, the refrigerator trucks outside of hospitals, right? The fact that so many people died so quickly, right? I think in hindsight, we probably could, if we knew what we knew then, how it impacted people differently, whether you were older or younger, it didn't impact people the same. It probably would have allowed us to open up schools more quickly. Perhaps. The problem is we don't live in a bubble. And that's what I think always gets lost when we talk about what we could have done differently. People don't live in the same type of environment, right? You might live in a household with a ton of healthy people, right? No one has a compromised immune system. No one's elderly, those sorts of things. Now contrast that with someone who might not live in the same type of households. How, as a governor of a state as large as California, do you decide which household to prioritize with whatever rules? And then you have the politicization of the whole entire thing and the fact that, states were doing it differently. And if you have a choice between locking down to save lives and not, how do you make a decision like that?
Well, you don't know. So you always have to err on the side of human life, right? If you're told we've got this disease, it's here, it's spreading like wildfire. We don't know exactly how it spreads because we didn't, right? We didn't know if it was, remember when we were wiping everything down, we didn't know if it spreaded by surface, if it was spread by air. We had no idea. I think you always have to err on the side of preserving human life, right?
Yeah.
And so how could he have done anything differently?
Chris, it intensely impacted the homeless population. The fact that you are discounting the number of deaths within the homeless it's sad. I mean, obviously, a lot of homeless people died. A lot of people died, and that's my thing. I don't know how we got to a
matter
society.
Of fact, I can recall huge outbreaks on homeless encampments in San Francisco.
That's why we moved them into hotels. Remember, that's why we were trying to get them off the streets. But the fact that we lost so many American lives, and people are still debating whether or not we should have done any of the things that we did, just reinforces the idea of how divided we are as a country, right?
And
I mean, it was a tragedy and people are still downplaying it.
I have to respond to Randy saying we locked down for an indefinite time with no criteria for lifting the lockdown. We locked down because we didn't know what we were dealing with.
Yeah.
We locked down to save lives. And as we learned what was happening, we lifted certain restrictions. As we learned that N95 masks work, and here now we actually have a supply of them, then things were lifted. As we learned that if you're outside, you're more likely not to get it, right? Or if it's a sunny day or whatever, we learned things as we went along.
Absolutely.
So that's when when these things were lifted. I don't think he could have done it any differently. And I disagree with the interviewer there who tried to go hard at Gavin Newsom. Yeah. He said, some industries you were okay and churches were not.
Hollywood, yeah.
Well, that's really frustrating. I feel like Governor Gavin Newsom, and I don't love everything he does, and we've talked about his whole PG&E thing and whatnot.
Right.
But I do think that his heart was in the right place as far as saving people's lives.
Oh, absolutely.
And, when you talk about what industries were allowed to continue and you look at different states, the people that put business over lives allowed everything to keep on going. Like they didn't care who died as long as the money machine kept churning. And I see that, I see who cared about humanity and who didn't.
Well, I'll push back a little bit on that just because, not that it's the same thing. Okay. But look what's happening in Maui, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had a huge loss of life, but then there's the business aspect of it. And people are like, look, I understand the tragedy, but I still need to be able to survive. It's nice to live in a bubble where I don't have bills to pay. And so it was this balance that was never going to be fair. It was never going to, if you value life over business, businesses die. And that is hard for people to come to terms with.
I don't think it's comparable because there's no threat in Lahaina. The fire's over. Maui,
Yeah,
it's
you know what
done.
I'm saying. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just this idea of, well, do we respect one thing, which is like, let's not go back because we're trying to be respectful, versus if you don't come back, my business is going to die. Do we lock down with this pandemic because we want to save lives? Or do we allow these businesses in some sort of way to adapt? Now, I will say this. Sandy says part of the reason for this was because we had such poor leadership in 2020. A different president would have guided us through the pandemic. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I would have loved to have different leadership in 2020. But I will agree with you on this point, Sandy. If we could have had a leader that united us and didn't use this as a divisive issue, then maybe businesses would have been able to find different ways of keeping themselves going. But it became so like you're either fully open or you are shut down, and or you use masks or you yell at people who use masks. It was so hard to even know what to do. I mean, remember the videos we would see with women specifically going into Costco knowing they had to wear a mask? There's this one video of a woman I totally remember. She purposely went there just to cause a ruckus, just to score social media points, in all honesty. But this was the society we were dealing with. Could it have been a different society if we had a leader that wasn't Donald freaking Trump? Yes. I think we would have been, I might be saying a little bit that I can't prove, but I think we would have been better people. I think we would have been a better country. We would have been kinder to each other if we had a leader that urged us to do that. If we had other leaders that urged us to do this, if it didn't score political points for Ron DeSantis to be as divisive as he was, I don't think he would have said the things that he did. But it scored points for him. I don't think that Ron DeSantis buys half the stuff he's selling. I really, really don't. But I think that he knows that it pays off amongst certain political circles.
Yeah.
But we can't live in a parallel universe. And that's what I think Gavin Newsom was saying right there. Like, yeah, we're all geniuses now. We all know at this point we could have opened the schools and it would have been okay.
Yep.
But we didn't know that then. We just didn't know that. And, I think that, and the church, Calvary has not won the lawsuit yet. Calvary Church here in San Jose is fighting the fines. So, it's still out there. Catherine says, we didn't get creative. Huge public places going unused in the summer of 2020. We can't pivot quickly. We argue instead of compromising. Yep. But I will say this. I think, the changes made in society with, let's say, remote work, right? Figuring things that we could do. Restaurants definitely changed. I mean, I think even right now, like, look at something like McDonald's. They're closing down in-room dining. Why? Because most people get things delivered. The delivery service. I mean, things changed as a society because we went through something huge. Let's stay with Gavin Newsom for a bit, because he's also said another thing that's riling a lot of people up. And this has to do with the fact that Senator Dianne Feinstein needs to retire. She needs to retire today. Like, I don't give two craps. I think a state as large and an economy as huge as California should have a senator that is, what's a kind way of saying it? More with it. I'm sorry, more with it. She fell again. She's 90 years old, people. Like, let her, well, again, I think it's ego. I don't care how old you are. When you've been in politics this long, there's an ego involved. I wish she would go out on top. She's not on top right now. And so this is the way that her political career is going to end, with all these questions and calls for her to step down, which I agree with those calls. So here is Gavin Newsom talking about the possibility that not only would he appoint one senator, i.e. Alex Padilla, to replace Vice President Kamala Harris, but possibly two U.S. senators if Feinstein actually steps down. And it is something that Gavin Newsom does not want to do. Here he is.
The senior senator here her daughter apparently has power of attorney. She, as an elected official, has power of attorney over 40 million people's representation in Washington, D.C. Why should she still be serving as a senator?
Yep.
Well, I leave it to her. I told you I'm the most subjective human being in the world on this topic. I have no objectivity whatsoever. I've known Dianne Feinstein since a kid. I interned with her in college. Still have a signed book from my days when she was mayor. So
More like family.
yeah. So I'm the last person to ask.
It's been sad to watch.
Yeah.
Look, this is somebody whose obituary legacy is.
Damn, Chuck.
People are
Got to bring up the obituary. Jeez.
Killed her off already.
I know.
It wasn't that long ago where she would call me up, read me the Riot Act on issues related to forest management, vegetation management, what we're doing in the Central Valley on drought and water issues. Again, that wasn't the black and white movie days. That was not too long ago. Her staff is still extraordinarily active, and we wish her only the best. Her term expires. She's not running for re-election. So this time next year, will be in a very different place.
Is it fair? Do you feel as if the staff is fulfilling, can do the duties?
Yes. I don't think, and I know it. We're working extraordinarily closely.
You don't
together.
feel as if the state's losing out by not having a more active voice?
Maybe missing town halls or but
working with the
Senator
people.
Padilla was just in the office a few days ago. We were comparing, contrasting issues and advocacy, and we're aligned with Feinstein in her office.
Sounds like
on
you
all
hope
these
you don't
issues.
have to make another appointment.
No, I don't want to make another appointment. I don't think the people of California want me to make another appointment.
Because you'd end up appointing both seats. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that's
So here it
that
is.
said, it's my job, it's my responsibility. If we have to do it, we'll do it.
You're gonna abide by your pledge?
Yeah, interim appointment. I don't want to get involved in the
So
primary.
no, you would not appoint anybody
Would run
on
again.
that is filed for
It
this
would be
race.
completely unfair to the Democrats that have worked their tail off. That primary is just a matter of months away. I don't want to tip the balance of that.
So what do you think? So Barbara Lee is pissed off, apparently. She says, she put out a statement. She said, Barbara Lee is running to replace Feinstein. I am troubled by the governor's remarks. The idea that a black woman should be appointed only as a caretaker to simply check a box is insulting to countless black women across the country who have carried the Democratic Party to victory election after election. Now, Newsom has said if he had to make an appointment, this was his pledge. If I have to make an appointment, right? Because otherwise it'd be the voters anyway.
Right.
If I have to make an appointment, I would appoint a black woman, okay? Because they are sorely underrepresented in the U.S. Senate. And there's many qualified women that would do this. Now, I understand that there's going to be people that take issue with any sort of projecting of what you're going to do, right? Before the time comes. But okay, let's just put that on the side for right now, because we're going to be talking about the fact that Newsom says, I'm going to maintain my pledge and I will appoint a black woman, but I will not appoint Barbara freaking Lee. Because that's what he's basically saying. I'm not going to appoint Barbara Lee because she's the only black woman running. And that's absolutely correct. Barbara Lee is low in the polls behind Schiff, Porter, and who's the other person? Is there another person or is it just her? She's third, right?
Yeah.
Is there another person? No, there's not another person running. Behind Schiff and Porter. And then it's Barbara Lee. He's not going to appoint you, Barbara.
No.
That makes zero freaking sense.
It would
He's
give her
absolutely correct.
It would give her an unfair, advantage in this race that they've all been running for the last however many months.
Exactly.
So if he appoints a caretaker, to just sit there and not run and just kind of babysit the office and do the work of California's people until the election is held, then what's wrong with that?
Exactly. And I feel like this makes her, Barbara Lee, like a poor sport. Like, continue to run, make your case. If you are the woman or man for the job, then the Californians will first put you in the primary, right? And then you'll win. But to say that Governor Newsom should appoint her, who is running, it doesn't make any sense. Now, people are bringing up Alex Padilla, okay? So Alex Padilla, of course, he's the other U.S. Senator of California. Now, he assumed office in 2021, but he was appointed in 2020 by Newsom after Senator Kamala Harris was elected vice president, okay? But he also ran for re-election. And I feel like the time matters, right? I think how much time there is before while you're running to when you're appointed matters. And I think there's a huge difference between Barbara Lee when the primary is closed versus Alex Padilla. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, do you think that anybody appointed by the governor should be able to run in the next election? In the next election? Or does it give them an automatic leg up? And so it's automatically unfair. I mean,
yeah.
I could kind of see both, right? It's like, well, I don't want a caretaker, but that's not what the person's going to do. Look, if you have to take Senator Dianne Feinstein's seat, you're working. You are a U.S. senator. You have to figure it out. And not only that, people are looking at you to do something because we've had a senator that's, at the very least, to be nice, phoning it in. I mean, she's not well. I don't know. It's so frustrating because I do like Feinstein. And I hate the fact that this is how we are talking about her when she's had such a great political career. But she's bringing this on herself. Just like Nancy Pelosi, even though I don't think that Nancy Pelosi is in any way, shape, or form the same health as Dianne Feinstein, I think the ego is keeping them both in office, or in Pelosi's case, wanting to stay in office. It needs to stop. Somebody was mentioning term limits at 85. I think it should be. How about this? And I don't know if this is going to be a controversial statement. If you can start receiving Social Security, you should not be in government. I think if you hit retirement age, you should retire. If you hit retirement age, retire.
Is that ageist though? I mean,
Why?
Can you really pigeonhole
We set a retirement
everybody?
age, right?
Can you put everyone in the same category? Because you have somebody like Feinstein or McConnell that clearly shouldn't be in the position they're in. And then you have somebody like Biden who's running up the stage and seems completely fine.
I'm not saying you can't do the job. I'm looking at an age in which we should possibly have term limits, which is what I've mentioned. So if a retirement age, let's even give you 5 years. If retirement age is 65, right? I don't even know if that is the retirement age in the United States anymore. If that's the retirement age where you can start, grabbing, let's add 5 years, 70. Why not? Why not have 70 as the age in which you can no longer be in government? In my mind, it gives you, one, start your career, your political career at an age in which, however long you want to be there. And two, get your crap done. If you have a goal in your political life, get it done. Instead of being like, I have another decade of life. Like, get it done.
What if I worked my whole life in a job and then I retire and I realize I've got a lot of time on my hands? I've always been interested in government. Well,
no,
I don't know. I mean, maybe you're writing a whole, group of people off who could really make positive impacts to society.
Then mentor people. Why do you have to be the person? Again, I'm going back to the ego of these people. Maybe you can still do the job. I'm not saying people that are 65, 70, 75 years old can't do the job they want to do. But what I am saying is when you are talking about politics, when you talk about running a country, I think that should be for people that I don't mean to be mean. Okay. I'm not trying to be mean when I say something like this, but you're making policy for people probably they're going to have to feel the effects after you pass away. You're making decisions about budgets that you may not even be alive to see the repercussions of. Does that make sense? You have so much power for things that aren't going to affect your life.
But just because you're affecting policies or things that will happen after you die doesn't mean you don't care about the country or the people that will be still living.
True. Absolutely. You're absolutely 100% correct. Do I think also that there are some issues that older generations don't necessarily comprehend, may not be fully engaged with because there is a generational gap? Yes. I don't think there's anything wrong with term limits. And you know what? We can debate the age. I'm fine with it, but just set one. Set something. Set a freaking term limit. Not only for politicians, but for Supreme Court justices and all of them. All this lifetime BS? No. We're learning. And again, I always say this country is still very young in the grand scheme of things. And this is a lesson we need to learn. We need term limits. We need to put an end date on some of these politicians because it's getting ridiculous. And name recognition, unfortunately, lets people stay in office way too long. I'm not saying people ain't active. I'm sorry. I don't give two hoots if you can climb, the top of a gigantic mountain. I don't want you in politics anymore after a certain age. And if that makes me a mean person, then that makes me a mean person. But mentor the younger generation coming up. And I'm not saying it has to be 50. I mean, I think 70 is reasonable. I think 70 years old is a reasonable age to get the hell out of politics. Make sure you're mentoring the next people. And I don't know, Figure out something else to do with your life. Let me guess, you'll probably become a lobbyist for some sort of firm that you made freaking laws about. Like, we know what happens to politicians when they leave office. So let's just stop. They make most of their money afterwards anyway. Go on a speaking circuit. Your life will be fulfilled. Hang out with the family you didn't see enough. I mean, travel, do shit. I'm sorry. But it's like, come on. You can figure out something to do with your life. We're not. Term limits does not mean discrimination. That is a BS argument. That is a total BS argument. John, it's still a BS argument. I'm not discriminating. Term limits are not discrimination. Is it discrimination that a 30-year-old can't run for president? Is it ageist that a 30-year-old can't run for president? No, it's in the Constitution that you have to. Why can't we just...
But you say term limits like, okay, you can only serve 2 terms in Congress and then you're out. That's a term limit. What you're saying is after the age of X, you can no longer be in office. That's not a term limit. That's a policy.
Sure.
Like they do for airline pilots, right? After a certain age, you can't fly the plane anymore. That's it.
Sure. Okay, fine. Yeah. No, then we'll call it age limits. Yes, I am 100%, no hesitation, 100% for that. Yes. It is. We've hit a ridiculous point in politics, Kim. There are way too many old people in office.
Everybody has a different ability, though. I mean, you could have, you see octogenarians running marathons. Some are very healthy.
Well, what is it? Who cares? Good. They're healthy. They can live a life outside of Washington. Why do they have to stay in politics? Why? Why are they not bringing up the next generation of politicians?
Because maybe they have something to offer. Because maybe they have time to offer it.
Ego. I don't know how many times it has nothing to do with the country. That is the most BS argument. Me, I alone, Dianne Feinstein, Mitch McConnell, I'll even say Joe freaking Biden. I am the only one that can do this. No, you think you are because you haven't figured out what the hell you're going to do with your life after this. Start thinking about it when you start hitting close to 70 years old and we set up age limits or whatever the hell you want to call it. And you got to get your ass out of Washington. Do something else. Sorry. I'm really passionate about this because this is BS. We are hitting a point where people are glitching during press conferences and we're just like, that's fine. Are you serious? One of the most senior Republicans is literally having a health issue, and because we can't get it together, they get to stay in office. A 90-year-old woman who everyone knows is not working at the top of her ability because she doesn't have it anymore is one of 2 U.S. senators for a state as gigantic as California. We're like, that's okay because God forbid we should be ageist. No, get out of Washington. There needs to be an age limit. And I'm not mad. I'm passionate.
I go back to what Perry Joe Jim Bob said a little earlier in the chat, which is that you got to let the voters decide. Like, why do you have to set limits and say after anyone over the age of 70 cannot run for office? If the voters want the person, then let the voters have the person. If the voters say this person's too old and they can't really think well anymore, then the voters will appropriately deal with that situation. Right.
And okay, so that's an excellent point. And maybe that's just what the answer. Well, that's what the answer is, right? I mean, that's the status quo right now. And there's 2 issues with that. One, like I mentioned, name recognition. I think that there's a lot of lazy voters out there. They're like, I don't know anybody on the ballot. I didn't really read the book. So I saw Dianne Feinstein's name and she was good 20 years ago. She'll still be good now. Like, okay.
Well, the way it works is the longer you're in office, the more senior of a member you are, which means the better appointments that you get, right? So
the better committees and things like that.
Yeah, the more powerful you become. And so it benefits the state of California to have somebody in there for a long time so that we are among the most powerful members of the Senate, of the House, whatever it may be. I don't know.
I don't think that that's a good enough excuse to get. But again, if age limits, I'm going to stop saying term limits. If the age limits are across the board, then the power is it has the same limitations whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or whatever. I don't know how much longer we can continue with leaving it up to the voters to do something like this. And I think the benefit of setting an age limit, once again, is allowing politicians to know, okay, I have this many years to get something done. Because you know what? It's just like our business, Kim. You need deadlines because then it gets a light under your ass to go get it done. Oh, we'll work on that in the next session. What if you don't have a next session? Then maybe you start working on compromises. Maybe you start working across the aisle. Maybe you start working on actual policy because, I'll just run again. And you know what? They're telling me that I have the name recognition to stay in office. Screw that. Get your work done, right? You need a deadline. And the deadline for a lot of people is your age. So there you go.
Better than just some arbitrary number where, everyone can be different. And so at 70, I might be raring to go and someone else might be in a wheelchair, with their head lolling back. It just doesn't make any sense. So instead of that, I like maybe having an emergency lever to pull if someone becomes incapacitated in office, right?
Well, it's supposed to be like the 14th Amendment. Isn't it the 14th Amendment or something like that? Or the 24th? No, it's the one with 4. Where they're like, you're a wackadoo, get out of office. But I don't think nobody ever pulls that trigger.
It seems like if there was a doctor that, if a capital doctor or whoever, whatever physician declares you either incompetent or unable to carry out the tasks of the job, that it's an automatic, your governor has to appoint someone now. Not some political, we're going to keep the staffers doing the job as we, as you were talking off the air, as we push this person in a wheelchair around playing Weekend at Bernie's in the Capitol, right?
It's true.
So
though,
instead of that,
her staff, I didn't elect her staff. I elected Feinstein.
And I know that Governor Newsom has a relationship with Feinstein and a history with her, but his first priority has to be to the people of California. And so it has to be about more than just her staffers getting the job done.
Right. I don't know. I mean, and I like the fact, and I know Mindy apparently has a problem with me being so hyped up about this. I like being passionate about it because there are repercussions for keeping people in office way too long. And we need to do something about it now. I mean, again, all of these things that we don't take care of are biting us in the ass right now, right? I mean, we've seen it during the former president Donald Trump and all these norms that people thought were laws that he just kind of was like, I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And we're like, oh, well, it wasn't actually a law. Putting Roe v. Wade actually enshrined in our Constitution. It's okay. We don't need to deal with that. We need to deal with these things. And unless we have some sort of limit on how long politicians can be in office beyond term limits, right? Because what's going to happen? There'll be a congressperson, there'll be a senator, and then they're going to come back and they're going to be, a state senator. It never stops. And we end up having the same people with same, yes, experience, but also the same baggage running our country. And we're forgetting about all of the younger people that are coming up through Washington that bring a different perspective. We always talk about the benefit of diversity in the workplace. That should still be the same in Washington, D.C. It's ridiculous. It's just getting ridiculous. And yeah, so we'll see what happens.
There's something to it, though, about her seat on the Judiciary Committee, right? And so if someone else is appointed, then I don't know if that seat is held.
Ooh, that's a good question.
I don't know if that's specifically her seat because of her seniority in office or how,
I think it is her seat. I'm going to err on the side of, I'm like,
if Newsom appoints someone, does that person just go and take all of her committee positions over and serve out her term as if they were, her with her history and her longevity in the Senate? I don't know how that works out.
According to the LA Times, no, there is no guarantee the replacement will fill their predecessors' seats. Of course, I opened it.
And if we don't have her on that in the judiciary, then the Republicans will be able to block all of Joe Biden's judicial nominees, perhaps. I don't know. It may be strategic. Why they're pushing her around like Weekend at Bernie's may be very strategic for what's happening.
Yeah,
she needs to last until the next election.
Yeah, so opponents can, in theory, hold up the process of seat appointments, of committee seat appointments with a filibuster. And even if she left office, Republicans could prevent the successor from filling her seat on the Judiciary Committee, that under current Senate rules. That said, taking such a step would be unprecedented and highly provocative, but this Republican Party doesn't give two craps about
they don't care
being
about provocative.
I mean, look at our military appointments, right? So,
they're not fair. They do what they want to do to get
Yeah.
to their own end. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, screw the
Yeah.
country. Why would they care about the country? Again, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, that's just how I feel. You guys can disagree about the age, and I'm willing to debate. I just threw 70 out there. I threw 70 out there. You know, I also choose 70 because it gives you enough time afterwards to do something else, right? I mean, I understand when you're in politics, it is all consuming. It's your identity. You have so much power. It can be hard to give something like that up. On the other hand, maybe that's why you got to pull it from them, right? They're so unwilling to let go of power that they'll do anything, right? They'll impeach a current president for absolutely nothing. Like, you know, they'll negotiate with Marjorie Taylor Greene as if she's in any way, shape, or form sane. These sorts of things are what happens when people become so obsessed with power and politics and are stuck in their own ego. And so that's my rant of the day. I don't know what's going to happen. I do think that Feinstein should step down. And if he does, I think that Newsom should appoint someone. If he promised a black woman, it's fine, but it ain't gonna be you, Barbara Lee. It's just not going to. All right. Let's do some headlines real quickly. What was it? Oh, I did want to do. Let's switch over to a different type of health thing. ChatGPT, an actual good headline about ChatGPT. And, you know, if you've ever used Dr. Google, maybe it's not a bad idea after all. And then we're going to get into Kim being a night owl. And should she adjust that? How many of you are night owls? How many of you are early birds? And did you marry the same? Or are you complete freaking opposite? So let me know in the comments. We'll talk about that right after Kim's news. Again, you guys, click the thumbs up button. Show your support for the show. The super chat's up. Become a Patreon subscriber. We appreciate each and every one of my adorables. Here's Kim.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
News again. You know, we didn't talk about, Nikki, was Nancy Pelosi. So
that's right.
Let's add her to the list of
who I really like, by the way. Can we just? I love Nancy Pelosi. I don't love everything she's done, but I do like her. I do think that she's been a good politician. Go ahead.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is ordering an impeachment inquiry into President Biden.
Boo.
So this is happening. The California Republican making the announcement today, citing dealings the Biden family has made, he says, with foreign companies and governments. The president and his son Hunter Biden have denied any wrongdoing, and so far Democrats say there has been no evidence that the president was involved in his son's business affairs.
Exactly. So. There's no, and this is the thing. I heard this quote that on social media, and it's something to the effect of, if something is presented with no evidence, it can be rejected with no evidence, right? Like, I don't have to prove that Biden isn't connected. You didn't prove that he was. So there you go. And I like that. I'm going with that mentality. Prove it. And again, I say this every time. If you can prove it, fine. Send his ass to jail or prison or whatever the hell he deserves for the crime that he allegedly committed. But if you can't, shut the F up. God.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is doubling down on his support for Ukraine as Russia continues its investigation. Oop, that's a map of China. Nope.
I was wondering.
Well, what's happening there? The Kentucky Republican on the Senate floor today pushed back against skeptical Republicans who argue there isn't enough oversight of U.S. funding for Ukraine. He said the country is a modern democracy firmly committed to integration with the West. So Mitch McConnell supporting Ukraine. It's interesting because it seems like some Republicans have their support for Ukraine has wavered. So,
well, yeah, because it's now a talking point, right? It's a political jab at President Biden that he's wasting U.S. money on Ukraine, which is insane, and not taking care of the United States. Like, whatever.
Daniel Cavalcante, we mentioned earlier, is now armed. The head of the Pennsylvania State Police revealing today, as the search for Cavalcante enters week 2, State Police Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens said Cavalcante stole a rifle from an open garage before being shot at by the homeowner while fleeing. Who leaves a rifle unlocked in their garage?
People that live next to the woods.
I mean, don't you have a gun safe? Maybe, I don't know.
When you
Just
live
a
next to
thought.
scary, scary woods. I don't know. You shoot at the owls that are, screeching in the night. I have no idea. I would not live. I mean, I always I think this and then I go, no, I watch too many scary movies. It has to be freaky deaky to live next to the woods. I don't know if I could do that. I mean, serial killers could come out of the woods and break into your home, or I don't know. It
Oh, you
seems
think they're
scary to
after
me.
you?
Well, this guy, I don't know. It seems scary to me.
I don't know either. But
Yeah,
I
Murphy's
think
like
you need
everyone in Pennsylvania has
to
an
lock up your
unlocked-
weapons, people. There is growing concern that flesh-eating bacteria infections in the United States, known as Vibrio, may be on the rise.
Oh,
Some
that's
experts
lovely.
think climate change is fueling Vibrio's expanding reach, including up the
Ew.
East Coast. This flesh-eating bacteria, linked to consuming infected raw oysters, thrives in brackish water and is more commonly a problem in Florida, Louisiana, and Texas.
Oh, well, that's good that my dad doesn't live back there. He loves raw oysters. You
Oh.
could, no. I like barbecued oysters, which I'm assuming would kill off whatever the hell that thing is.
Yeah.
But I cannot. Raw, no. That is, even barbecued, I'm like, I got to cut it up a little bit because I don't want that whole thing down my throat. But yeah.
I mean, isn't that like, I've not had a raw oyster, but isn't that kind of like eating snot? This just gelatinous thing of
Well,
goo
there's
you
a
have to
body
swallow?
to it. There's a body to it. It's not just gelatinous. There's a meat to it, but it's so slimy. And then it's like this whole, it's like this whole slurping thing. It's not like, you don't look sexy. Let me just say this, slurping an oyster. All right. Like no, it's not, it sucks. Let's just say that.
Speaking of sexy, a Democratic candidate for the Virginia House of Delegates is defiant after it was revealed she performed sex acts with her husband online. The Washington Post reports Susanna Gibson live streamed the acts with her husband, a lawyer, for tips that she claimed were going to a good cause.
Yeah, my pocket. A better cause than that.
The
Wow.
mother of two young children performing the acts after she declared her candidacy in 2022. Now, see,
Okay.
if you know you're running for office,
Why would you do something like that? No, wait a minute. Okay. Is what she did against the law? No, right? It's
Nope.
not against the law.
no,
Was collecting the money and tips against the law?
don't think so.
How did she say how old her and her husband are?
They have two young children, so
Okay. So let's say 30s, 40s, maybe.
Mhm.
Okay. Were they like literally boning?
a sex act. So it could be an
It's
oral
probably the
sex
second.
act.
It's
Maybe.
probably the second over there.
Or maybe it was the full,
Act.
what's it? The full act.
The full act. Here's a question for you, Kim. Would you vote for somebody that did this? They
No,
didn't break the law. They didn't do
Mm-mm.
any of that. Okay.
No,
You would not vote for them.
no, it goes to poor decision making.
Okay.
I mean, you have already filed to run for office. So, maybe you wanted the publicity. Maybe you're only running for office because you wanted the publicity to go to your OnlyFans channel, whatever it may be. That's fine. But I think, either you are going to be a respected member of that Virginia House of Delegates, or
Mhm.
you're going to make your money on OnlyFans. Pick one. You don't have both.
So you think that somebody that does that has an OnlyFans channel has disqualified themselves from politics?
I am not saying that. I think they've disqualified themselves maybe from my vote, and maybe
Okay.
other people don't mind that, and they're like, "Hey, you want to have sex for money online, and also make decisions that affect me and my family? Go ahead."
Right. But you're on the other side.
But I'm thinking, I don't know if our thoughts are aligned, you and I, ma'am. I feel like maybe you're,
I love
mean,
Jess's comment.
it was still a job. It's true.
Still
Hey,
working for that money, Kim. Still working for that money.
she is. And you know what? I say, go get it. Do what you got to do. But I don't think if I'm a voter in her area, I don't think I want her representing me.
I don't know if I would. I'm going to go on record and say I'm not disagreeing with you entirely, but I like just having the debate of what did she do that's so wrong? She's married,
Right.
she's having sex with her own husband.
Yes.
She's,
Online
utilizing
where everyone can watch. Mm-hmm.
which again is not illegal.
True.
Is it okay to have a little kink in your life, right? Keeping your marriage spicy, right? Like at least she wasn't having an affair. I mean, it's not like we're talking about Anthony Weiner here, right? I mean,
Right.
it is legal. It is in her marriage. It is obviously consensual. I mean, I feel like there's politicians that have been voted into office that have done way worse than having sex with their spouse on camera.
Put her in a meeting where important
Right.
issues are being discussed. Is she
Okay.
respected in that meeting? Everyone
Because
at
she
the
has sex with
table.
her husband?
Everyone at the table has seen it.
Yeah,
Is she regarded with the same level of being a competent person in the room that is able to discuss the issues?
Because of the stigma we have with having
because
sex
of
on
the
camera.
stigma that we have, and right or wrong, it is what it is. I want someone who can do the job without that.
Okay. I mean, our first lady was she was in what, Playboy or whatever. I mean, our former first lady. I mean, people were able to look beyond that. I know it's not a politician, but I don't know. I mean, I wish that we got to a point where it didn't matter. Like, okay, so you have sex with your husband on camera. Can we talk about, homelessness?
She did naked nudie pictures with other ladies, Melania.
Yeah. Nobody seemed to have a problem with that. Well,
Oh,
some
people had a
did.
problem.
Some people
had a
but
problem.
It didn't stop him from getting elected,
Yeah.
is what I say.
No. Mm-mm.
It's this again. I always go back to sex.
But imagine
seems to
if
be
that
the
was
biggest
Michelle
sin.
Obama. If Michelle Obama had done that, naked
Right.
nudie with other ladies, it would have been a deal breaker.
But I don't know why sex is always such a deal breaker for people. But other things are okay. Tax evasion, these sorts of things. Lying. Okay. That's just politician. But you had sex, which everybody, would like to do or is doing.
No, it's
All
not
of a
the
sudden,
having.
that's
It's not the having sex. It's the having sex for money online.
I know,
different.
but it's
Like,
not
go
illegal.
home and close the door and do what you got to do, and with a consenting adult relationship.
Yeah.
But when you put it online and ask for tips that go to a good cause,
All right. Okay. I don't know how I feel about it. Honestly, I don't know if I would. It would matter who the other candidate was as well, right? I mean, we do need to think about politics. It's like, can I look past somebody's freaky dicky ways because they're actually going to fight for the issues that I care about? Or I'm going to vote for the other person who maybe wasn't getting freaky deaky on camera, but that I don't like their policies. I mean, who would you vote for in that instance?
so here's a question. What about the man?
Exactly. It's never about the man.
If he was running for office, would you be like, he's online doing his wife?
Right.
Will we be so upset about
No.
that? Or is
We're
it just
never
her?
upset about the man. We're never upset about the man. We're not upset if the man lost his virginity at 13. We're not upset about the man that has 50 million partners. We're never upset about the man. The woman, she's no longer pure. It all goes back to the same hangups we have, from
The
generations
woman is a
ago.
filthy whore. The man, keep going,
Was
dude.
just the one that made her filthy. So there you go.
Right.
Whatever.
An expert says civic leaders and the owners of old brick buildings need to learn lessons from this recent earthquake in Morocco.
Ooh,
Nearly
yeah.
3,000 people were killed, most crushed under the weight of unreinforced masonry. And really, that's what we have in California, too. I remember during the Napa earthquake, some of the most serious injuries happened with people in front of brick fireplaces, right?
Yeah.
Craig Chamberlain is the president of Structural Engineers Association of Southern California. He says some buildings in our state are similar to those in Morocco, actually. Construction of unreinforced brick buildings was banned in the 1930s after the magnitude 6.4 Long Beach earthquake in 1933. Chamberlain, he says at least 3/4 of the potentially dangerous buildings have been retrofitted, but hundreds more still need attention before the inevitable next large earthquake turns those into death traps.
I always remember we were talking yesterday about the Bay Area family that was in Morocco during that earthquake and used their kind of California earthquake skills to help them out. One of the other things besides the whole, remember standing in the doorway and all that sort of stuff, is laying down next to like a solid piece of furniture, like your bed, like right up next to it, not under it, but up next to it. They
Yep.
call it, there's a word for it. It's like,
It's like
this
the
is
bubble.
wrong. Yeah,
You're
the
creating a
cavity of
bubble.
life. Like
Yeah.
you're creating this space
Yeah.
where when things fall, it'll fall at an angle and you are alive right there. I always think that's another tip and trick that I would always think of.
Got this little crevice. Yeah.
Exactly. Like stay near the crevice. Don't go under. Don't go under, but definitely stay next to it. So yeah.
The autonomous vehicle industry has driverless 18-wheelers, and they are ready to hit California's highways. But a bill making its way to Governor Gavin Newsom's desk would require a human driver in the cab of a big rig, at least for the next 5 years. Members of the legislature say they're concerned about safety and the fact that driverless technology is still in its early stages. And whether the governor signs the bill into law, not a sure thing. The governor's business development office says the bill would hurt the state's competitiveness, limit supply chain innovation, and undermine existing oversight. If the governor agrees with that assessment, then a veto is likely.
Okay, so I like the idea of a human being being in it at least 5 years, right? But here's the problem I have with it, and that's the same with regular self-driving cars. If you're just a passenger and you're not actively driving, you're going to fall asleep. You're going to fall asleep. You're going to get bored. You're going to start reading. You're going to look at your phone. Are you as engaged in the activity of driving as you would if you were behind the wheel? And I say no. So I don't know how much safer it's going to be, but I will say if something technically goes wrong with the big rig or the car, and it's like sirens and like a beep, 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 do something. It's good to have a human being in it. But I don't think that this is the same as having an actual driver because they're not engaged in the activity.
Yeah, it's hard to pay attention when you don't have to.
How many videos have we seen of people falling asleep behind their self-driving cars on Highway 280? You want to know why? Because Highway 280 is a great drive and it makes you sleepy. Like, believe me, as someone who's done the drive a million times in the middle of the freaking day, and the wide turns, the no traffic. Yeah, you're out like a light. So I don't know if it's really going to make everything safer. I want to proceed with a lot of caution with these self-driving cars.
The city of Beverly Hills is facing a multi-million-dollar lawsuit over allegations of racial profiling by police. The $500 million class action lawsuit alleges nearly 1,100 African Americans were unjustly arrested by Beverly Hills police over a 2-year period between 2019 and 2021. Attorneys Ben Crump and Bradley Gage say those numbers make up 34% of all of Beverly Hills police arrests, while less than 2% of the city's population is African American. They say all those arrests, only 2 people were convicted. Which leads the attorneys to believe racial profiling is alive and well in Beverly Hills. City leaders say the numbers released by the attorneys have been mischaracterized, and the city will defend itself against those allegations.
Interesting.
And lastly, are Georgians losing their famous drawl? Researchers at the University of Georgia and Georgia Tech say yes, they are. According to the AJC, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, they collaborated on a study that shows residents have been shifting away from the standard accent over the last few generations. The study shows it became really noticeable with Gen Xers, and it's even more pronounced with Gen Z. The trend first began in the years after World War II with an influx of people moving into Georgia. So
interesting. Yeah. Losing the drawl.
Yep, that's right.
I mean, I think that I like accents, but I've said this so many times. I pick up accents so easily. If you talk to me with an accent, I will start talking to you with the same accent. Something in my brain just does that constantly.
Have you seen that comedian? Her name is Leanne Morgan.
I don't know.
She has the new thing for comedians is to put little shorts on social media.
Yeah.
And so she has all these shorts that pop up on Facebook every time I'm on.
Oh, okay.
She is hilarious. And
what's her name?
Her name is Leanne Morgan, and I'm fascinated by her accent. And I think, is it real, or is she playing it up for the cameras, or what?
Oh, interesting.
But part of her whole shtick, what makes her so funny, is the way she speaks, right? And so, I mean, it's what she says, but it's also how she's saying it,
right?
With her accent,
right. Yeah.
And so I would be sad if that type of drawl went away. If that's her real accent, I love it.
Well, there has to be, I think, the longer you're in a country, the more of a concerted effort, I think, if you want to keep your accent, you have to make. I mean, look at someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I have a friend that I've met through my kids' school. She's from the UK. And she's kept her accent. And I remember a few years ago, we were having a conversation and one of her kid was pronouncing the word without the accent. And she's just like, why are you sounding American? Right. Because it sounds straight to us, but to her, it sounded weird. And so I think you have to keep it up. I mean, look at, anybody that doesn't live in that town anymore should technically, after a while, lose it unless you make a concerted effort to keep it. My parents, they've lived here forever, and they open their mouth and people are like, "Where in New York did you live?" Like they've never lost it.
Yeah.
They've never lost it. So.
I mean, I don't know. I think when you grow up speaking a certain way, part of that's hard to lose, and you're always going to hear a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my dad also has a very deep Italian New York accent. My mom, there's certain words, but it's really my dad that has the biggest accent, I would say. But yeah, they end like idea becomes idea, like they add R's to the end of words with that accent. So yeah, I do not have an accent unless I go to another part of the country. So there you go.
Do we have a Californian accent though?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We do. Apparently we do. I do not hear it. I feel like I talk like the national news. That's how I always determine it. You don't often hear, I mean, sometimes you do, but you don't often hear, especially network anchors with an accent. They lose they go to voice lessons to lose their accent from Tennessee or Louisiana or Mississippi or something like that, right? Their Southern accent is what it usually is. And so if I sound like that, then I don't feel like I have an accent. But
my husband has a Michigan accent.
Does he?
Yeah, he really does. I love to make fun of him for it.
Oh, that's funny.
It's the A's, like and with golf, they say golf. Yeah, you hear it sometimes. His is really slight, but some words he'll say where it's like, I'll point at him and yell, Michigan.
Right,
anyway,
exactly. That's funny. That is funny.
This report is sponsored by you, and that means we do rely on you to help us keep this show rolling. You can find us at thenikkimedoroshow.com, thenikkimedoroshow.com, where the Patreon and PayPal links are so nicely laid out for you. I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Nikki Medoro Show.
So I want to take something back. Somebody in the comment was calling me out on that. It's called Triangle of Life with the earthquake.
Oh, okay.
And the person was writing that that's actually not supported. I just remember watching a news report about it. I thought it made sense to me, right? If you lay next to something and then something's falling down. And so I looked it up, and they're basically saying that drop, cover, and hold on is still the thing that they promote because of things falling on your head. So if you lay next to something, you're not necessarily protected from things falling down. So yeah. So I guess it's a controversial, not largely supported idea that I should not be promoting on my show. Look, just get to safety. How about that? But yeah, stop. It's not stop, drop, and roll. That's if you're on fire. But drop, cover, and hold on is still apparently the number one way to protect yourself in an earthquake. Okay. How to get that out of the way. All right. So Chat GPT. Now, has your school or anyone said anything about Chat GPT using AI or any of those sorts of warnings?
So Julia had my 14-year-old daughter going into high school over the summer had an assignment for honors English. And the teacher had assigned them to read a book and annotate it, and then gave them a series of questions to ask. And every week they had to answer another question about some type of literary term of the book, whether it was theme or character or what have you.
Okay.
And when she gave the instructions, for the first time I've ever seen this, she said, don't use AI or programs like Chat GPT. I will know. So it was the first time I've ever seen a teacher specifically offer instructions. Don't do this. I'll consider it cheating.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm totally brain farting. It was either her science teacher or her English teacher, I think, was saying the kids are going to be writing in these like notebooks that they keep in the classroom, and they're going to be writing. I think it was her English teacher, like pen to paper. Writing. And when they have assignments, that's how they have to do it. So even if, and she didn't specifically mention AI, but it's like the whole plagiarism type of thing. But also, even if you are copying the information, the act of writing it is teaching you. kind of thing. So not that she's promoting cheating, but like if you're going on the internet and you're looking
Right.
things up and you're pulling things from the internet, at least it's not just reading it, copying and pasting with your mouse, slapping it on a document and sending it in.
Right.
You have to transcribe it. And that
Mhm.
in and of itself is a learning kind of avenue, which I liked. I was like, dude, because also these kids need to practice their freaking penmanship. We're raising a bunch of doctor scripts everywhere
Yeah.
nowadays. And I'm like, can you guys just write everything? Do your children write in cursive?
Jacob loves to write in cursive. As a matter
See,
of fact,
neither of my kids
he
do.
taught himself how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried so many times. I got the books and all that, but and she took a class. I know my daughter took a class. I think both of them. I forget what grade it was, but it was in elementary school where they learned cursive. But if you're not going to reinforce it, they're not going to write that way. You know what I mean? Calvin says the old ways, don't cheat. Well, ChatGPT gets a lot of criticism for school, for plagiarism, for all sorts of things. But there was this amazing story. The Today Show was following this kid. His name is Alex, and his medical struggles. So apparently, the kid was having gigantic meltdowns unless he got a Motrin a day. He was grinding his teeth, so they took him to the dentist, and they were like, "We can't figure it out. We can't figure it out." He was chewing on things, so they wondered if it was his molars and causing pain. They thought he had a cavity. The dentist ruled everything out. They also believed there was possibly an airway obstruction that was affecting his sleep. It wasn't that. They did find that his mouth palate was too small. So they did the expander, but that didn't help. He had stopped growing. They thought that maybe he had an illness that kind of impacted his growth. So they put him in physical therapy and nothing was helping. So all of a sudden, I think it was the nanny. I think that, it was the nanny. Just was like, you know what? They plugged in all of the symptoms into ChatGPT, and in 2 seconds, now we're talking like a couple of years going back and forth with doctors, they found out ChatGPT just shot out tethered cord syndrome. Have you ever heard of tethered cord syndrome?
No.
It occurs when there's tissue in the spinal cord, and it attaches, and so it kind of limits the spinal cord, and so it stretches abnormally, and it's closely associated with spina bifida, which is a birth defect. But this kid, so normally there might be a hole or something more obvious that he had that, but his had closed, and it makes it very hard to detect. So ChatGPT helped this kid.
Yeah.
Obviously their parents are totally relieved they can take care of it now with their doctors and with surgery or whatever. But yeah, so there's a good health story for you using ChatGPT and putting it into Mr. and Mrs. Google on the internet, because I don't know about you. I don't know if I've ever told the story about my hangnail. I had such a bad hangnail. This is my KGO days. It wouldn't go away. My finger started turning red. Everything that I did, I went down the rabbit hole. I thought I was going to have to get my finger amputated. The rabbit hole that I went down was just like, if you've tried this, that, and the other, it could be this. And I was so scared that I was going to lose it. Thankfully, I just soaked it for a couple of days and it turned out just fine. But yeah, you don't normally have a very good story when you start going down the Dr. Google rabbit hole. Let me just tell you.
Yesterday on Mark's show to Robert Scoble, who's an AI expert.
Uh-huh.
And he was saying that he had interviewed doctors that are now saying that AI is so good at making medical diagnoses that it will be soon malpractice if you don't use it.
Or at least run it through it, right? Like, am I missing something? You know what I like about it, though? And I know that people might think that this is a controversial thing to say, but it's really not if you think about it. Is that so many medical papers and documents that medical students are taught on. I'm not going to say they're racist, but they're based on kind of the white woman, white man, and forget, different types of diseases and things that happen within the body based on, your genetic, ethnic makeup, right? Within the Asian community, within all different types of communities, certain things are more prevalent. certain things should be thought of first, right? That may not, if the medical education comes at it a certain way. And with Chat GPT and the internet, obviously in general, if you can plug those things in, like I am seeing this symptom, this symptom, this symptom, and it is a 40-year-old Asian American woman, then you can go into the background of what is kind of prevalent or common much more quickly. And it can kind of not reduce, not eliminate, but reduce the bias that can come with medical education, right? That where, I was educated on this disease, but not recognizing that there can be different caveats involved with a medical diagnosis based on who's in front of you, right? So I think that that's really, and I know I'm not saying it's a highly controversial. I was going to say it a different way. But yeah, it makes sense that unless we update these medical books to take into account all these different ethnicities and backgrounds, if that education doesn't change, that new doctor might not think of, we should have thought of that first. That's why there was something in the news just the other day about the shortage of Latino doctors. Right. And not just because of the language barrier that can be involved, but also, the background and what you bring to it. Asian doctors, all different types of doctors bring their own health perspective because of what they see within their own community, within their own families, within their own genetics. And so I think I could see how Chat GPT and AI can totally fill that gap. Now, do I want to only go to a Chat GPT doctor? No, I do not. No, I do not. I want the hands of a human. Please lay it on my body to look at me.
Something that, might be missed by the online doctor. They don't have eyes to see you, to see, I don't know, nuances in your condition, how you're feeling. Are you, your eyes a little droopy or whatever. They don't have the full picture like a human being
Exactly. And some of the symptoms you might forget to plug in that a doctor might see. I remember when my son was really little, he got hand, foot, and mouth, but he didn't get it bad. It was really, really weird. And he didn't get the hands or the mouth. He only got it on the bottom, and it was very mild. I mean, we ended up putting him, I think, on some sort of medicine, but it wasn't bad. I had brought him because he had a stuffy nose, and I brought him to the doctor, and I remember it was winter. And I didn't take his socks off. Now, it was a failure of the doctor to not ask to remove the socks, but I didn't they were just looking at the symptoms right then and there. And then I got home and I'm changing his clothes and I see all these little spots on his feet. So I had to bring him back. But yeah, it's all of these things that unless you input it into the computer's never going to see it. The computer's not going to be like, do you know that your skin is a little yellow, right? Unless you recognize the fact that you look a little yellow or orange, the Chat GPT is not going to put that into the symptom list. Yeah. Eric says, better get used to Chat GPT doctors in the U.S. The healthcare industry doesn't need to pay them, so they'll become common. I mean, it's going to be on us to demand certain things, right? But yeah, good luck. The healthcare system in America is a joke, unfortunately. Okay, one last thing. Kim McAllister, you are a night owl. How late do you stay up?
It depends. Probably 2:30ish.
In the middle of the week?
Sometimes 3, yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Do you take a nap in the middle of the day?
Sometimes.
I mean, because you wake up, this show starts at 9. No way am I getting to do a show at 9 if I go to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
That's still 6 hours, though. That's 6 hours of sleep.
I need more. Are you not I love sleep. I mean, I don't sleep well. I'll say this. I don't sleep well. I was toss and turn sometimes in the middle of the night, but I need to at least be in said bed for at least 8 hours. If I get less than that, which I do when I have to work in San Francisco because I can never go to bed early enough, I am not well. I am sleepy. I don't know if it's a mental thing. Even if I'm in the bed for 7 hours, let's say, I know I'm not sleeping the whole time. I need my sleep. Vilma gets 4 to 6 hours of sleep. Is that enough for you, or is that just because you have to? See, that's my thing. I need to get it. But a new study has found that people like you, Kim, are more likely than early birds to have unhealthy lifestyle behaviors. You also have an increased risk of developing diabetes and other health ailments. So now this isn't about partying. It's just your circadian rhythm.
Right.
And so that's what it's such an interesting article. I'll link it into my social media feed. So 60,000 female nurses were followed for this study. It revealed night owls were more likely to consume unhealthy diets, which I'll just say this, if I stay up late, I'm eating crap. That's hands down. That's why I also like to go to bed. I'm like, go to bed so you stop freaking eating, right? Like, because I'll eat. I'm like, I'll have a little snack, and then I had yogurt and ice cream and all kinds of crap, right? You exercise less. I'll say, if I'm tired, I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm not going to work out, right?
Right.
You obviously sleep fewer hours, and I know you don't do this. You're more likely to smoke cigarettes than early birds. So I think that's going out for that nightly cigarette or whatever. There's a 19% increase in the risk of developing diabetes. Among the women in the study, 11%
Is that
reported
because
they were night owls.
supposedly you're up at night eating sugar? Is that what they think?
Well, I mean, type 2 diabetes, I mean, I would say it would go hand in hand with eating like bad food, right?
Yeah.
Because type 2 has to do with diet. Type 1, like childhood diabetes, has to do with, more genetics and that sort of thing, right? So,
But what if you're up just doing stuff and you
right,
lose
and not
track
eating.
of time and you're not, sugaring down? I don't know.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
So this one director of the Center of Excellence for Sleep and the Circadian Research at Columbia University said if it's not possible to adjust or find jobs that can be done later in the day, then people with late night body clocks need to be careful about your lifestyle habits. So if you are forced, let's just say you work a weird shift, right? So you have to work these crazy hours, stay up all night long, then you need to be really focused on when you are awake that you're doing the best things. I can't stay up late that much anymore. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, occasionally if I'm going out on the town or something like that.
Right.
If I'm home, no, midnight. Like midnight, I'm falling asleep on the couch. Like that's usually what I end up doing. Like just the other night, this past weekend, my husband went to bed because he had to work the next morning because he had to work during the weekend. So my son comes out. I'm like, you want to watch a movie? We have been trying to get through the original Batman with Michael Keaton twice now because we both keep falling asleep on the couch. So yeah. And I will say this, somebody just said it. Where was it? Oh, here. Here it is. Vilma, don't eat after 8 and don't smoke. I can't subscribe to that. I mean, I would say I stop eating probably around 9 or 10, if like the weekend, you know what I mean? And I also consider cocktails food, right? Because it's calories or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that usually goes on way past that on the weekends. So I'm not drinking during the week still. So definitely not following that one. I don't smoke anymore.
I'm a weird sleeper though. I'm a weird person with sleep because a lot of people that stay up late, maybe they have insomnia. They can't sleep for whatever reason.
Right.
I'm not that person. I've never had trouble sleeping.
Oh, see,
you could put me in the middle of the busiest train station and I'd be like, no.
Really?
I am a sleeper and I will sleep through anything. I'm a very deep sleeper.
Oh, see, opposite over here.
So yeah, for me, it's just about getting stuff done. I don't know.
So you wait until late at night to get whatever you want to get done. So you're just
I'm doing
fussing
laundry,
around the house all the time.
I'm doing the dishes. I'm working and like setting up shows. I'm doing things.
Yeah. I'm the opposite. So I'm extremely light sleeper. Like I sleep, and you guys know this, I sleep with an eye mask. I sleep with earplugs, and I could still hear every freaking creak.
Really?
You know what I could hear? I can hear every creak, but I can't hear what my husband's saying right next to me. I go, what? I go, what are you saying?
Isn't that funny?
I can hear him breathing, but when he starts talking to me, I go, I can't. It's like Charlie Brown. Wah, wah. I'm like, what are you saying? I have my earplugs in. But yeah, I'm a very light sleeper, and I toss and turn all the time. My mind does not stop. And sometimes I'm exhausted thinking about going to bed because my mind just wants something like just stop thinking about what I have to do tomorrow. Some sort, and those sorts of things. So I'm that type of person. I get things done. I get things done during the day.
During the day, I do.
Yeah.
I drive my husband crazy because I can fall asleep like that. Like the minute my head hits the pillow, I'm out.
Oh, I'm so
Whereas
jealous
he
of
will
you.
lay there and lament over why he's not able to close his eyes and go to sleep.
Yes.
And then I wander in and I'm like, head on pillow, I'm out. Yeah.
It must be nice. Yeah. I wish I could fall asleep like that. It's just, again, So for instance, my schedule right here is I end this show, I bring my phone, I turn on the Mark Thompson show, and then I get all my chores done. Like I walk around the house with my phone and I just get stuff. So that's when I clean the house. That's when I do the dishes. That's when I start the laundry, although I have to monitor that because of electricity times, right? All those sorts of things. I get it all done. And then my show, I start planning this show like 5, 6 o'clock because I want to see what's happened during the day that I want to talk about.
Right.
Because by 7 o'clock, I like to be done. I mean, maybe 8 at the latest because I need to have quality time with my husband or my kids.
Sure.
I need to decompress because I know damn well my mind's going to start racing. If I did this show, like prep this show all the way up to bedtime, I would not be able to sleep. I'd be thinking about all the things I'm talking about and those sorts of things. That would just add to my brain going.
So like last night we all had dinner together. I have my family time. I'm doing my stuff. And it's when they go to bed that's when I kick into the work show. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's so funny that we're so opposite. I mean, I talked to people, they're like, take melatonin. Now there's this whole magnesium thing. Like, believe me, I have been, somebody's like edibles. No. Oh God. I would probably get in my head and be like, I'm going to be stoned when I wake up. It's just, I've always been a light sleeper. I really, really have. Oh, and Mindy, I could not disagree with you more. We have what I can only account for is all of the crickets outside my window, all of the crickets in the entire world, unless I am camping. And then even then, I wish they would shut the F up. They're so loud. And my husband loves to sleep with the windows open. That's just another thing that's keeping me up. It's so not relaxing to me. Maybe the sound of water, maybe like the white noise, but it's hard. It's really hard for me to go to sleep. And, so I don't know if it's any better for me. Like, is it worse? Like, I don't know if my health is any better if I'm going to bed earlier, but I'm not getting good sleep versus you deep sleep. And it's only 4 to 6 hours.
But I don't think that's a lot of late risers or night owls. I don't think a lot of people are like that.
Like deep sleepers, you mean?
Yeah. And like also I'll have catch up nights where I can sleep for 11 hours.
Oh, wow. No, my eyes open at 9 in the morning. I can't really sleep past 9.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 if I stayed up late and I'm really, really tired. But after that, I open my eyes. I'm like, get out of bed.
They say it's better if you do it your way and you have like a set schedule.
Right.
Whereas I can be all over the map. And I think it's my prior work history where maybe I did other shifts and my body is used to being awake at all weird times. And I don't have really, and I'm not, there's no regularity to it.
Right. So your body's like, I don't know when we're going to bed. I don't know when we're waking up, but we're doing what we're doing right now.
Eyes feel heavy. Time to go. Yeah.
And sleep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys click the thumbs up button before we end the show. And again, stay on YouTube. The Mark Thompson Show is next. And then the After Party Live with Kim and John. Please go to the NikkiMedoroShow.com. Help keep this show running. Sign up to be a monthly Patreon subscriber. You get to choose the monthly amount. If you can afford a little bit more, we really do appreciate it because we do want to continue doing the show for you guys. Plus, that's the spot where you get the PayPal link, the NikkiMedoroShow@gmail.com, and of course, our merch shop as well. We will be back tomorrow. We'll also talk tomorrow about the new iPhone. Also on Thursday, we'll talk about that with Jefferson Graham. I don't know if it's going to be worth it. I sure as hell ain't buying it. That's all coming up. Have a good one. Bye.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You're sprout, like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.